This is a production of Cornell University.
Hello. It's my honor to welcome each and every one of you to the 2019 MFA Graduation Reading. To be here to feel the support of you all is invigorating, humbling, and validating for myself and my peers. We'd like to thank the Pickett family, the faculty and staff of the Creative Writing and English departments, the MFAs who came before us, and those who we were able to meet this year, all of these individuals for their generosity, patience, and minds. I'd like to thank personally my cohort who has welcomed, loved, and taught me craft-wise, mind-wise, heart-wise. Thank you all for joining us in celebration of what the last 2 years have held, what the present moment ignites, and what the time ahead offers. So our first reader is Remy Barnes. Remy's fiction appears or is forthcoming in the Iowa Review, Mississippi Review, the Southampton Review, and elsewhere. From Tallahassee by way of Texas, he is at work on a novel set on the Gulf Coast.
It's with immense pleasure that I introduce my friend and poet, Chris Hewitt. Christopher Hewitt is a poet from Dallas and the San Francisco Bay Area, a hummingbird and drag queen enthusiast. He loves anything that shimmers. His work often reflects this magpie sensibility, as well as a love for rhyme and meter. His poems are appearing or forthcoming in Rip Rap, 32 poems, and he would like to thank you for listening.
Thank you, Remy, for your wonderful fiction and your dulcet tones. How's everybody? Can I get a yeehaw? Yeehaw! Thank you, okay. Woo. Okay, I'm gonna read 4 poems, hopefully, if I can get through them all. The first one is called View from the Berkeley Hills. A seagull, larger than the Golden Gate's airbrushed silhouette across the water, flies and wilts to a gray-white millimeter. Bumper-to-bumper traffic granulates to platinum glints, next to which a BART train slides 8 matte gray aluminum cars, oblong beads on low-gauge wire. Acres, inches, each passenger a handheld heart, and bungalows abstracted down this slope to redwood-nested geometrics relinquish room for cirrus. Accurate spatial language amplifies and shrinks, just as that telescope magnifies that tooth in the bay to a sail bellying on the water's rippling gossamer, or, flipped around, concentrates the summer cyan translucence all our lungs inhale. This next one features, it's a letter from one fictional persona to another fictional persona, these 2 people, Theo and Lynn, who keep emerging in my poems. It's called Residency at the Quartz Tower. Dear Lynn, where's Lynn? Hi, Lynn. Dear Lynn, imagine red sand for miles and miles and the noon heat's false water shimmering. Horizon hard and crisp, severing the desert from the cloudless sky. Camel smells, the warm flavors of goatskin water dates like leather, the guide's white robe rippling like a laundered sheet. 3 days of this. So when the horizon sprouts a needlepoint of glass which, as I near it, rises, swells, glistens up from the quivering mirage, becoming, can it be? Yes, a quartz tower. As if one day a waterspout froze and over time the sea dried up around it. Do I trust my eyes? Does that question matter? The oasis proved itself real enough for me, where the date palms cast over shallows, faint serrated shadows, like carbon paper cut with safety scissors, and where domes, a girl lifting a basket, and a goat chewing grass refused to be other than what they were. Facts beguile. Take this silica high-rise I've come to, hewn from pure rock, netted throughout with seams that look like cirrus, yet otherwise translucent. So you see blurry movement within like leaves that flow beneath a brook's winter glaze. Craftsmen have etched the entire facade with vines, flowers, shells, fish, whatever embodies water's limber sinews, down to the ogis above the double doors. Welcome, celebrated guest, greeted the monk, who led me into the tower, at the center of which, an eye to the storm, one hollow column fills with light, blindingly so, where spiral stairs wound to my room, a slab for sleeping, chair, and desk, chiseled from the same crystal. The monk bowed and left me to write this letter to you. Lynn, I must confess that though I've come all this way, pursuing the dream made real, the real made dream, now that I've arrived, I think only of you, the garden, the house. Why, when given the chance to rediscover the world, refresh the senses, does the mind reach back for what it knows? Comfort, perhaps, or newfound gratitude. Not that one wallows for long. Just now, overhead, a fellow guest, piglet pink, blurry but clearly nude, pressed himself to the floor for some afternoon yoga. Friends come easily here. To dwell in membranes permeable and rigid, revealing and concealing, both false and true. What better place than this for a simple ode to Chihuly's enormous columns? Remember, in Seattle? Apparently I'm staying in one. And soon, to my room, on a platter, orange slices, pomegranate seeds, and bovine ligament stewed in paper-thin slices of onion will calm my little qualms. I'll write again to report on how the tower looks in moonlight. Milky, cyclonic opal, how much one loves reverie. Till then, let soft thoughts of you relieve this querulous traveler's mind, your faithful dreamer, Theo. This one's called Juggling on a Nude Gay Beach. Here we know what it means to catch and toss, while three balls in primary colors whirl like gyroscopes gone wild, obeying the laws of chaos, chaos contained, until the virile figure from Blake, now slipping from his suit, plunges in undulant shatterings of barrel and reemerges glistening head to glute. Collision! Two balls smack and the whole pattern explodes. Balls everywhere. The most astute fool discovers grace in the body's eternal clumsiness, joy in deviance. Three dudes spoon, wiggle their pelvises, grin. One has a sunburn, the middle a shoulder tattoo, Bigfoot, baboon, the last pectorals like mangoes. Over them sways an umbrella, the hue of the lemon macaroon they nibble, and over this a flag with rays in every flesh tone, its corner stamped with a paw, and higher still, two octopus kites ablaze in neon green and orange swell and blow themselves to heaven as ribbon tentacles fly back like a diva's perm from a Malibu convertible, leading the eye to the dunes where gulls circle and guys disappear for an hour or three. My lover bites a banana, swallows, and rolls an overripe apricot over the blanket to me, my newest toy. So here's a full shower upon this crash course in male anatomy. Look out, here comes another fruitful error. All right, this is the last one I'm going to read. The title keeps shifting, but right now it's Dallas Through a Puddle Darkly. On McKinney Avenue, a mirror sheen of summer rain reconstitutes myrtles in bloom. One pink blossom falls, its holographic twin below the surface rises, and they merge, bridging the centimeter chasm where orange cumulonimbi wander miles down in the shallows. Sidewalk paved with sky, this heavenly mirage turns a newspaper sheet to pulp, and doppelgangs towers at sunset, their westward windows molten, dripping where a trolley's bilateral symmetry stops and a woman disembarks, doused in a gown of diamonds. Meanwhile, doves, their feathers as soft as receipts tucked in a wallet, gather on telephone wire and ruffle out from their wet wings droplets that, bubbling upward as they sink, riddle with brief concentric simmerings the equivocal vitreous, the asphalts and the eyes, inverted images never examined close enough till now, so that this asphalt aquarelle, distinctively selfless like the mockingbird's recombinant pastiche, flushed as with beta waves when evening lamps rekindle their tungsten synapses below, lays out an immaterial stage for walking on clouds, a downward sky-high glimpse reconceiving the real. Thank you. My pleasure now to introduce Nneoma Ike-Njoku, is a Nigerian writer and editor. She has received funding and residencies from the Miles Moreland Foundation, the Knight Writing Institute, and the Yiddish Book Center. Center's tent program. Her short fiction appears or is forthcoming in the African Futures Anthology, Bat City Review, and Winter Tangerine, where she was the 2016 Prose Prize winner.
Sasha Smith is a Bronx-born Jamaican-American poet with degrees from NYU and CUNY's Bronx Community College. She received the 2016 Poetry Project's Emerge Surface B Fellowship. Her work appears in the Southampton Review, Poets Country, and the Fall 2019 Black Warrior Review. Her manuscript was an honorable mention in the 2017 Cutbank Chapbook Contest, and she's a third of the PhDs here.
She means a third of the future PhD. Thanks. Okay. So I'm reading from my thesis, and it's hard to explain, so I'm just going to give you hashtags. Cosmogony, cosmos, universe, existentialism, make, unmake, simple stuff. Phi, being the progenitress, let you union us be what is born of chaos. Let galaxy us be what is born of chaos. Let you, universe being, nova you, pre-waned, become the nubulae, begetter of gods. Let spawned embryos spoil and spill into dimensions of gas, dust, spools. Let you, union verse being, become out of carnations a womb. Phi, whichever of the Gemini to have been thrusted into, whichever who swallowed astrophysicals, beamed jets, and choked on bursts, whoever clamored in arrays of gammas afterflows was sheathed in superposition, how being of the Dioscuri is a swapping, captured in situ between Hades and Olympus, being all minor twinned becomings, being sequels of ravenous swans, being from the walls of a womb and the frayed reticulum, of silted sheets and sidereal rind. Whichever of the ones to pale encounter, whoever to have slid galaxy us through slivers of rotation is the punctured starred union, who Clytemnestra, the earth murderer, seized her suitors, miscarried them across the belts, or died in a matrix of begetting, is how the universe you contests its compulsory hatchings. Being you that once forfeited the cosmos, traded half Empyrean for consciousness, being a you universe being spared in transverse planes, growing hooked and stretched as dust, what is left in the impartiality of our divine? But a limping neuron flipping through nostalgia, returning with a faint blood-tipped beak, and who turns that immortality to mortality and returns it to the stars? Phi, how at the final category of being we became, entropy, or how in the encroachment of we universe, the universe you attempts to become from flush titan stars and become to superluminous nova, and how at that junction we became instead a fading and failed imposter, or how in being us we became too massive to form, became mass and formation. Phi, remember having once upon a macrocosm, or having once opened flesh chasms mid-soul, half-chested and foiled, and having been measured so woundedly in deglovement that we were tasked with ribs and sums, or the sums of us, the ribs of our sums, remember. How in being a union without a center, a century-old or center of all union verse, how our you universe us is and was the center of being of which all beings became. Remember when weeded out of expansion a pentacosm, wheeling centurion, a century-old you beings spelled its division with grounded mnemonics and ancestral defecation putrefied into ore. Remember the centrioles of our materials, or the meconium core, the accumulation, galaxy us spindled and marred. Remember how it calls remembrance. Phi. How at escape velocities, galaxy us unhyphenated cells, fractured, dislodged gluons, resolved logics, designed cells to be sunken, pressed, curved to a sickle, to be vacuumed and swung to revolutions, or to be how. As a heart or what becomes a heart, we began into percussions, each 23rd cycle. And how or when, as it coorbited, we ejected the lifespan of our pulp, solved our primal pithiness until flesh dust re-densified, re-emerged a hypothetical, an open cluster that began masked, that became hyper-compact clothes of parasites. How parasitic our binaries became from dust, from host, having resolved ourselves to be and to be made into eons of reparation. How at unbecoming, at the thickest grain of astral sand, we contracted, how at the fracture we became a corpse wormhole, strapped, degeneration, or a corpuscle. Phi. Remember how we unsolved ourselves using matrix and determinant, using thrownness. How as an I am pleased with my existence, or how as an it exists through my pleasures, we became a factory of relation, elementals, a residence of being in the worldness. How it became chimerical from disclosure and topicality, or how omniscience became stagnation science and nucleolus, how it extracted from solar plexus a misnomer and a hitched rut, sutured to a pulse, how it belied a galaxy, you, universe, us, bellied into an infant nova, how we, galaxy, and universe, us, began to and how as an as neutron nerves, you, union, us, navigated in X's, X pulses, how on impulse our dim-starred networks impaled us, made our being toward death a way of being us, unsurmountable, disparate. Or remember the fetus rush, how at essentiality we unsized whole dimensions and stretched and halved them and lapped them into a nebula, how at becoming a member of a memory, the Daisian, our existence, us existence, made itself, ourselves, you, enucleated, an implosion, X'd. Last one. Phi. Citizen ataxia, or you old unmanned prokaryote who swallow and membrane yourself into being the amorphous symbiont thing. No one was fractioned into cosmo, you, the blunt-tipped spheres of blastules, of blundered cluster blocks, was a you who slapped asunder a gravistar, you who nothinged nothing, became cell, became globule, became a coming. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce Alice Mercier, the third of our make-believe PhD group. Being born, I was just in this whole thing. Before moving to Ithaca, Alice Mercier lived and worked in London, where she studied photography arts at the University of Westminster.
Thank you. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Turski. Alice grew up in Houston, Texas. A Langsdorff and Danforth scholar, Alice obtained her BA from Washington University before joining the MD PhD program at NYU. On leave indefinitely, Alice is currently working on a collection of poems exploring intergenerational myths and the post-war periods of Poland and China.
Okay, so the first poem is called The Night. In her shrouded tent, we play with ourselves, small children too, unraveling so sweetly she spoils us with cover. But then the sheet lies flat and flattened. We notice the great shame of the negative, as otherwise known, the hole in my side. Wet with one opening, I dig into another, probing, probing, probing. I giveth Excalibur back, and on the other side, pushed through the hide, the shortest breeze wrestles through me, and the warmest rain wrestles through me, and the softest bell wrestles through me. I lie myself down, as close to the ground, until sacred loses interest. This is an English play. For 5 minutes, I make my mother read Hamlet. A lullaby, I say, if you do it right. I pin her finger down, and the ship rocks to its side, prostrate, chewed and spit out in the captain's voice. You, the army of fleas, and this, life, this is life crawling overboard. And I dragging, I blazon, I birth forth the first word, my gift to her. Lucky, saucy tongue, and straight pearly teeth, an elegant, slender throat. We can lop mountains in two, spring rivers from the ground, and make water thirst for the path I flicked into shape, like the dragons we are. Louder, I say, and louder she sings, because I am so very powerful. And this is one of the poems that takes place in the post-war period in Poland, called He Soldered Track to Wheel. If there were 10 ways to say kid in my language, this for the kid with the bellowing bull gassed in, blowing spit in my face, wet dripping between you guys, from cuts meanly done. Look him in the eyes, guard his temples with all-seeing good wishes, so his racking moans drives the wedge, as if he had the plains of Rye all to himself. So galling and abstinent, his memory of you holding silverware in one fist, and in the other, chanterelles, thin and slippery. How hard it was to digest the silver down into shit, the curse word, already in the kid's name, who makes a mess of things when things are already a stinking mess. But if the Soviets are taking trainfuls of toilet paper and your beautiful, rustful behemoth coming for you on its wedlocked road is bid to leave you behind, toilet paperless, potatoless, what else can you bid but marry your behemoth to your land? I'm going to read two more. And this one is My Autumn Folks. Everyone knows when it's pumpkin time but me and mine. Imagine homely innards tinged blue-gray all the days, as if someone forgot protective plastic was meant to be peeled. I didn't mean to say someone. It wasn't me. Nothing but moonlight gets an extra boost reaching through the window. Come visit us, for I can smell your golden turning, master of splendiferous demise. By plastic, I meant twilight. We've been left to twilight. The weather changes all the time on the other side of the window. The eucalyptus litter, the bed of ball cacti. There wasn't always so much of me. I've been laughing so very much this past summer. If you haven't seen a pomelo yet, you're in for a treat or a scare. Just one family we are. Sneaking in from below, the cold is wanting to slumber. It's that time of year. If you decide to come over for a visit, put your hat on the HEPA filter by the front door. Brush the ash from your coat like it's dust. It is dust. We will have to sweep after your departure. Please do not track mud inside, unless, is it pouring out from your ears? We need to breathe, just like you. Cover my mouth if I talk in a different language. I've been put here to translate. What am I saying? Oh dear, I spilled on you. And this last one is marvelous. I'd like to rip something out when I hear collective American. Not so there are flowers delight awaiting, a consultant pearl, high-frequency hearing, or your ears mounted on yet-to-be flower stems. But that the city is bland, yet I'm to vaguely recall the street outside my street, except that it is yours, and I'm not keen for fighting, at least today. There's mixing, then there's contamination, and still no one will let the shadows squint the wrong way. Let it be, so be it. I can't hide the interval between my left breast and your palm, and my heart slippery within. The trophy, yours. Thank you. I'm very excited to introduce Charlotte. Charlotte Pattison's work appears or is forthcoming in Passages North, Smoke Long Quarterly, and Yalobusha Review. The daughter of 2 U.S. diplomats, she's currently at work on a haunted house novel set in Bucharest, Romania in the late 1990s.
Hi, thanks everyone for coming. So I thought I'd read a short story and not from the novel that just got mentioned, because this is self-contained, but also because it comes from the period of my life right before I left to come to this MFA program, which I'm so grateful to have experienced. So this story is called The Sitter. The sitter is thorough with the litter box. It is almost artistic, the way she tills the absorbent crystals like her own private Zen garden. She is skilled at making the old cat take all 6 of his heart medications. She eats a handful of salted peanuts every time she walks in the door. Sometimes she also eats the dark chocolate chips stored in the cabinet. She has an eye on the level of each, the peanuts and the chocolate chips. If it gets obvious, she'll buy a replacement and dump the contents into the original container until the level is restored. Elizabeth said she should make herself at home. The apartment is perfect for the sitter's needs. The cable TV is a luxury. The couch is comfortable for lounging. The bed is always freshly made when she arrives, and the clawfoot tub is a gift. She could pretend that this is her apartment and that she is the corporate executive for Macy's if it weren't for all the troubling personal touches she finds every time she opens a drawer or scrutinizes a fridge magnet. Even though the apartment is small, she finds its silence eerie. Perhaps it is the cat who follows her from room to room with a forbidding countenance, waiting for her to settle in a location so he can fold himself primly in her lap like a long-haired paperweight. She has always had a hard time disturbing a sleeping animal. There is something precious about his sleep, the stolen hours here and there, one ear always cocked for predators, the slight twitch of the paws that might prove dreaming. It feels like a measure of trust to have an animal installed in your lap. You'd rather have your legs go numb than wake him. But her boyfriend sneers and says, "You're just like a space heater to them. They are drawn to warm places." The longer the visits last, 3 weekends in a row, 1 or 2 weeks, the more snooping she feels is authorized. First, she just wants to know where Elizabeth goes when she leaves. Many of the trips are for work, but the 2 weeks in March are for Iceland, scrawled in all caps on the wall calendar. The sitter looks ahead for vacations to get an idea of how much money she can expect to earn. Several business trips in April, Sarah's wedding, and Thailand in mid-June. It is one of those personalized album calendars, studded with photos of a blonde family of 4 with 2 cute kids hovering around the age of 10. Everyone's birthdays and anniversaries come pre-marked. The woman in the pictures appears to be Elizabeth's sister. Munching on the stone-ground wheat crackers she has been slowly depleting all week, she'll get more. The sitter wonders what it would be like to be close to the family who produced this calendar. Who else did they send it to? How many people were expected to filter the next year of their lives through the main events of someone else's? At least Elizabeth's bedside reading is indicative of simmering psychological distress. You are a badass. How to stop doubting your greatness and start living an awesome life. Daring greatly, and confusingly, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. The sitter thumbs through them while the cat purrs in her lap. Some pages are dog-eared for reference. In You Are a Badass, the reader is invited to list their best qualities. Here, Elizabeth has written in pencil: caring, family-oriented, adventurous, animal lover, active, ambitious. But the whole page is smudged with eraser dust and false starts. The sitter pets the cat too hard. He snaps and moves to give his tail a tongue combing in the corner. Her boyfriend texts to invite himself over. He wants to try out that bathtub, but she doesn't reply. Other things: the bedside drawer with the 2 packs of unopened condoms, a half-burnt candle, a bottle of lube barely squeezed but no sex toy, a note to self taped to the fridge door reminding Elizabeth to call the gym and ask about personal training sessions. Remember, not Stefan. What did Stefan do or say? And the butterfly collection pinned behind glass in a shadow box on the wall. The case itself is an antique, a relic from some prior age of animal cruelty. Maybe it also descends from the grandmother who hand-wrote dessert recipes on little cards that have also been glass-cased and memorialized next to dried purple flowers. A straightforward recipe for cobbler with the postscript to future generations. This is a quick recipe where you're in a hurry and very good. Next to the Ziploc bags, the sitter finds a list of attributes that Elizabeth is seeking in a partner, written on an index card. They are the same ones she wrote in You Are a Badass, with a few additions that may be qualities she feels she lacks: calm, spiritual, good sense of humor, or perhaps direct correlatives for a previous love, correctives for a previous love: patient, serious, kind. The sitter takes a picture of the list to text her boyfriend, but deletes it immediately once she sees how the photo looks. Her phone has framed the list as bright and insignificant, the same as the recipe. Taking the photograph makes the sitter feel sick with guilt. For days, she sees it whenever she closes her eyes. The next weekend, she opens the same drawer, and the list has vanished, but the feeling remains. Elizabeth is in Iceland, and the sitter is on her couch, the cat pinned in her lap and yowling while she administers his second heart medication. Elizabeth left a big tip this time. Her note said, "Thank you, you're the best." A text appears on the sitter's phone screen. Her boyfriend once again invites himself over to the cat condo. He wants to take a bath together. But if he gets in the bath, he'll see the little rubber duck that Elizabeth placed next to the faucet. He'll see her hair removal cream with its label turned shyly toward the wall. He might eat her gummy vitamins and sneer at the copy of Women's Health wrinkled with bath reading. He's exactly the kind of man who would put on Elizabeth's polka dot shower cap and do a stupid dance. So the sitter takes the cat's water dish with its surface wisps of floating hair. She drops in 3 salted peanuts and a spoonful of chocolate chips for sweetness. From the bathroom cabinet, she takes a pump of anti-aging cream and an aspirin for unexpected pain. A dash of lube from the bedside drawer. On Elizabeth's fire escape, she looks for something natural and sees with a guilty pang the scraggly basil plant she has forgotten to care for. A few withered leaves will have to do. Behind her, the cat is testing an exit. He has one paw out the door before she softly closes the screen. The sitter knows that when she pours this charmed stew into the alley, she should say something that matters, but it isn't easy to think. She looks at the mess she's made and thinks, dump. The cat in the doorframe sees his dish and purrs, drink. Thanks, guys. It's my pleasure to introduce our last reader, Francis Revell was born in southern Delaware in 1995. At age 13, she enrolled in a residential Vaganova Ballet Conservatory in Maine. In 2017, Francis received the Most Promising Young Poet Award from the Academy of American Poets. Her essays and poems appear in American Poets, Dilettante Army, the Iowa Review, Vinyl, and Tammy. Please welcome Francis.
Hi. You're all so wonderful. So happy to hear you. I'm going to just read one poem, and the title has two parts, and the first part of the title is taken from a Wikipedia synopsis of The Little Match Girl, and in the second part of the poem, there are some lines quoted from a Bobby Vin. But they knew nothing of the wonderful visions she'd seen, or dehydration. One, the first. On the scheduled anniversary of my last drink, how my luck folds out daily like a map whose horizon is endlessly inspired to grant me a new world corner, to fondle, need, name, or tear, or how my luck is always going to, and minding fro only to keep up manners, keep up show. I find you on all fours, staring into the cupboard, trying your hand at conjure, each success a misery in its failure to call forth just the right shape of glass in which to nest yourself. I cannot touch you. It's no different than sleep here in this hipless club of lollygag, where we have no corners, and when moving, always moving, we move smooth like boys, narrow and cleansed of neuroses. It's that thing, you know, taking hold, that thing I thought was made for mocking my waistline, but was mostly seeking to show me what fun it might be, to release the burden of spacing, sizing, sliding through a narrow pass by way of slicking my side and shooting on through. Something like a genetic, wild, I willing a beast. Would you, speaking of, play your mammal for me? You're the sniffer while I work the air that crescents thin from your mouth. I strum it till it's nil. Remember when, as a ghost, you formed between your needling digits a cigarette case, celestial encrusted, to prove your knack for homemaking? We were to bride our ardor. I was to name my spooking Arda, but she vanished as soon as I lost. 2, the second. Lost touches 6. It's been a while since you've come around. You'll notice I've since taken to dressing my bed in shapes of raw-cut glass, mostly resembling magnolias or gondolas or something star-like. Hello, little girl. And the sting sharp, by keeping me still, it lulls me off. I sleep by the sea, where I'm bound. Goodbye, little girl, by 2 beams of Apollonic give. Seemingly all to myself, when the clock has strangled its dark opposite of fever. This brand of love makes one cautious. I'm not your kind. Of grace in all its forms, conscious or otherwise. The milk of Guy cools before I serve it. Little girl, trouble to the hermiting. Trouble, trouble, Cobra, the handsome bandit who, trouble, trouble, is my morning-wise comforts with my middle name, me. He and I, for now, some days I call him, for the record, that is begged by the village census bureau, sainthood. Know ourselves only as a honey-like mask, a syrup when we wake. Before, my early was spent solely on sloshing my anticipation, my mood, or my static, my 3 from cling on your neck, your thigh, those perches behind your ear tops, or the craters located at the fiery base of your spinal column, where everything I gave you pooled. These days, the hooded and I, we may travel lonely here through our halls, kitchens, cabinets, pipes, but lonely as one. We'd be hand in hand if we could, only untangling to comb out the other's eyelashes, he and I. We're bad with money. He's too in love with China, coastal blue. His Zale vigor's my own, blinds me from all my reminders. This note was meant to be one in which I offer to pay you back for the weekly services, laundry, room, and nourish, but my companion, sainthood, he couldn't resist a lap or two at the ink, navy and glared, hypnotically toxic and stench, bled it, so he did, all over the parchment. You know by now, I can't do any business with the illegible, nor with no, nor with chastising the magic of this friend of mine denying the colorblind life of his kind. So I started over. Here we are. And anyway, every last coin went towards our hobbying. And when we sickened of useless goodies, it went towards our tendings. How severe we were about Mondays, being the time for nothing but embroidery when, by Tuesday, we'd tossed our efforts, mindless, into the hamper to make room for what we hope will be a month-long furnishing of mirrors from one another's eyes. Before you start with me, it isn't about gaze. It's about give, about a return that is passionately empty. Or is it about vice, or perhaps vice versa? We've yet to care for that particular breed of ineffable who seeks to question our postures, rules, or what exactly we are doing here. Sharing this bed near filthily sanitized and refusing to acknowledge that at least one of us, apparently, is fresh for the kill. Mostly we're polite, keeping questioners like that for tea. But on Wednesdays, when we're so far from our inauguration day of prayer, day 7, and so far from our next, so basted in the middle, we're liable to throw that kind of visitor out to the bustling street, where a mother, some Elizabeth, who can't conceive of our way, will pick her up for school, teach her to mind her own business, and grow up fond of arithmetic or Latin, or maybe of the shiny task of making meringue. In honesty, we're just not concerned with this concept of teasing our priorities apart from our mutual parlor curtains rich with knots. We like anticipation, we like wholeness, we like the definite, we like lust's exact opposite. We necessitate no anticipation, but just tonight, while the moon enticed the sainthood to visit the lustrous skin of the milk in his newest saucer, a joie de vivre seen in cream and sky, a baby in the lap of a mother, both in bonnets, a man whose rifle has nothing but air to point to, a steeple firing up to heaven in the distance. 3, the cry. It was then that I did think of you, of us, we windy by a wharf. The water was the belly, resounding bell strong, a range from demon deep to falsetto whir, the belly of a creature who sang the anthem. You thought the medium perplexing, but I knew those shutters clattering on the distant prairie of death were just the sides of a soft fork threading the width of 2 fangs. We wore sweaters. Mimed fishermen. The bread I'd packed for us, very plain. Even the dumbest geese wouldn't bother. When I gauzed us to the wooden rails, prepared our mighty for all might, you tried to adopt the grip of the tune on the wind, as if a comprehensive physical might solve for our escape. Your whistle, weaker than a new whelp yet to learn his power over the very idea of intrusion. I forced the sharpest needle I could muster from my throat, but my rush, like a death, wanted nothing but seed, but to cave me. Glancing down, I saw my heart, ripe with new, capillaries shimmying up, they nettled my hide. I saw and I blinked, all on my own, blinked the heart of the mouse who refuses the hiding, but she cannot resist, you know, the rind. Thank you. thank you all for coming. I'd like to invite you to join us upstairs for a reception in the English Lounge. But I'm going to leave you for now with these brief words from the late poet Lucy Brock-Broido. There is no world I know without knowing some word of it. Thank you.
Can I bring you all the way around to that end? Being leads, yes. From the entire back row, take one step forward. There you go, there you go, there you go. And we've got 3 and 4. Okay. And this thing goes flat. And is it boots? This is just a test. Calm down. Okay. Can I get the entire group to take one big step to your right? Everybody. That way. That way. Everybody. Everybody. My shoes. And now can I get the whole group to rotate? You guys stay where you are. Everybody at the left end take one step forward. So the whole group's going to rotate towards me.
Your left or our left? Stage left?
Your right. Your right. Sorry. There. There. That's it. There we go. Much better. And another test. We're almost there. Good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. Let's. Can I get the people in the back to turn sideways towards the center, please? But don't disappear into the heads behind. There. Yeah. You scoot out a little bit and turn sideways a little more. Other way, towards the center. There you go. There. Okay. And smile like you're enjoying this. I know you're not. And everybody with your feet. Move a little bit. I don't want to float around. Careful. Anybody does crazy poses and you win the lottery, and I will too. Can closer come out 2 inches that way. And then, no, that was a lot more than 2 inches. And no, like, what there? And then can you come out just another inch? And can you come to your right 1 inch? There we go. Okay. Can I have everybody here, please? And take it up. Can you look towards me, please? And turn yourself back towards me just a little bit in the front, please. That's it there. Okay. And 2 more. Camera just wants to go today. Last one. We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.